The development of Islamic banking worldwide is a phenomenon that is growing in many different jurisdictions in the Middle East, in Europe, in Asia. In London, the development of Islamic banks has now gone further upstream from investment banking, sukuk, the bond market, and so on, into more of the commercial banking environment. And here to speak with me today is Richard Thomas, the Chief Executive of a very new Islamic bank, Gatehouse Bank in the UK. Thank you very much for joining us today. Give us a sense of when did you get your license, and what's the background of Gatehouse Bank, and what's your personal background in terms of the professional skills that you come with that contributes to building this bank?
Emmanuel, the Islamic finance has been entrenched in the London market for 25 or 30 years, and my background spans that period. I came to Islamic finance really on the acting as an account officer for Islamic Development Bank, who've always been my inspiration. My background before that was very much merchant, the old-fashioned, traditional merchant banking, Brand Shipley and such. And I quickly came to understand that the Islamic economic model and Islamic banking model, if properly practiced, had a lot in common with the kind of values and contribution to productivity that the merchant banking system had, and quickly adopted it as my preferred model. I'm not a Muslim myself, but I find the Islamic economic model particularly compelling, and having experienced the Americanization or investment bankingization of the City of London, I found the Islamic model much more to my taste.
It's to your taste, as in to your moral taste, or to your taste of building a sustainable business model, or what aspect of Islamic banking did you find most compelling?
Yeah, the Islamic model has the advantage of combining both, and I'm very much persuaded that to be successful in business, a proper moral compass is rewarded.
At which point did UK legislation change to be able to allow commercial banking, Islamic commercial banking, and then that would have triggered the spate of Islamic commercial banks we have today?
The legislative changes have come relatively late in the process, with the arrival of the domestic market in the UK. We have a very significant Muslim population in the UK, around 3 million at this point, and it became evident that they were to an extent economically disenfranchised, or a proportion who wanted that Islamic banking opportunity were not able to access it, and particularly through home finance. Probably 10, 11 years ago, the demand for home finance and for other products drove the process. And we started off with, for instance, a Murabaha mortgage product, which required a purchase and a sale. That made, at the time, a problem, because that would have been subject to double stamp duty, and the government acted very quickly.
Are you saying that that the business in Islamic finance today, in Islamic banking today, the mortgage business, and also I'm very interested the deposit business, is a new business for the banking industry? It's not cannibalizing traditional business or the traditional asset portfolio of the banks today.
We went through a period of certainly 10 years in the international markets where conventional banking became unfairly competitive. The risks related to business were not priced into business, and that made it very difficult for the Islamic banks to compete on a level playing field, because their model, based in the true economy, wasn't inclined to adapt to these unfair practices. It would be very difficult for an Islamic bank to enter into the same kind of derivative contracts or the same kind of capital markets products which the conventional banks did and eventually exploited themselves with. So for 10 years we faced unfair competitive pricing, and that has driven the industry to an extent towards seeking solutions based on unfair competition, and has meant that perhaps in the last 5 years the Islamic banking model has become too close to the conventional model, that innovation in truly alternative products was stifled, not because it wasn't what people wanted to do, but that we didn't have any buyers for these products because they were fairly priced and properly reflected risk, and nobody was interested because they were rushing into these other products. But now we've had this credit crisis, the playing field has leveled, and all of a sudden we're seeing the re-emergence of the remodeling of the equity model within Islamic banking, and certainly at this time, provided people learn the lessons of the crisis and don't forget them, it is the time for Islamic banking's alternative models to prosper.
Do you think that the market, how many Muslims are there in London now? 3 million?
In the UK, yes, approximately.
3 million.
Yeah.
And to have 5 banks open up almost in quick succession and go after the same client pool, scaling up is going to be a challenge.
There's one standalone retail organisation, Islamic Bank of Britain. The first of the Islamic banks to get a licence was Islamic Bank of Britain,
so you're going
and
to be
that is our retail bank.
Okay.
And we have they have competition principally from HSBC and Mana, and one or two other smaller organised, but principally from HSBC and Mana. So that's the retail offering. And there are other service providers in the retail sector. When I was at Arab Banking Corporation, we set up the first Al Barak Home Finance Programme, which was part of that in association with Lloyds Bank and Bank of Ireland. But the retail offering is relatively discreet and correctly scaled probably for the development of the market. The other organisations all have slightly different, the other Islamic banks, slightly different focus. They're not all in the same sector. The second to arrive with European Islamic Investment Bank, with an investment banking model. Then we had Bank of London and the Middle East, which was very much a corporate commercial bank, and who've prospered on the back of international corporate finance, asset finance. Right. European Finance House, who came after that, which was established really as an arm of the Qatar Islamic Bank and Qatar's activity related to commercial property and to some development of the European corporate model. And then finally we had Gatehouse Bank, which was envisaged as a very much capital markets organisation